It's
No,
dark.
no, it's fine. We can see you very well.
Yeah. And it's a little bit, it's a good thing to be a little bit overexposed because you can't see my wrinkles. So
Yeah, I was sure you will say that.
not to talk about my mustache, which I shaved this morning. Yeah. I'm pretty excited about this.
Should be fun.
Yeah, it will.
I have tried to secure.
How's the weather like?
This morning I have an elf living in this house, and it's a very nice elf normally.
Right.
But it has one problem. It likes to have a drink every now and then. So I always have to have a drink for him on top of one cupboard. And this morning I said to him that, all right, I need all the possible help now. So I'll give you a fresh drink. And he was like, yeah, you have the good brandy, cognac. That's too expensive for you. Isn't that an importing case for you? Oh, yeah, so I gave him a sip of XO cognac.
Right.
Well.
So the elf doesn't like any traditional drinks that you have in Finland?
It's a very, very fussy elf. So normally he likes brandy or port wine. Nothing else.
Yeah, port wine is delicious. I like it.
Yes, I like it too. Yeah. It's a drink for elderly ladies and young gentlemen.
Yeah. I don't drink alcohol, so I cannot say how it is.
Yeah. It would be more economical if he would drink beer, but he's not stupid. But if someone is over 300 years old, so...
Yeah, we understand that. How's the weather in Finland?
Now we have had 3 days so that there hasn't been night frost. So the green explosion is starting because it's like, as long as we have frosty nights, nothing is growing. But the very moment when the frosty nights are gone, everything is like boom. It's starting to bloom. We have some wildflowers. And it has been really, really warm. I had my afternoon coffee sitting on the stairs, my kitchen stairs outdoors. Beautiful.
That's great. Yeah.
But it can still snow.
Really?
Yes. Not very often, but it's not anything special if we get some snow in May, and if we get it melts away the same.
We have the same situation, I think, 2 years ago. Am I right, Julio?
Yeah.
So we have snow in May.
Quite a big one.
Yeah.
Very unusual.
Usually, yeah, very unusual.
I have a glass of water, actually. Good.
Not a problem. There's still time. We can.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
And where shall I put this so that
Hi, Mike. Welcome.
Mike, John.
John.
Hi, how are you, Riikka?
I'm nervous.
You have no need to be. You will be magnificent.
Ah, yeah, right. I'm always magnificent.
Of course.
Have you had a nice day in Finland, Riikka? What's the weather like there?
It has been too nice today, too warm for me already. So we have had now 3 days without night frost, and the summer is like exploding. It's
Wow.
green everywhere all of a sudden, and really nice. Noisy, the birds are back, and they are nesting and fighting for the best nesting places. So it's a lot of sounds, smells, everything. It's so nice after the dark and silent winter, because we lose almost all the birds. They go south.
So how long is the day now?
Other days, I think the sun gets up around 5.
Yeah.
And it will go down approximately at 9 at the moment.
Okay, so that's like is that a 16-hour day? That's getting longer, isn't it?
Yep, and it's getting lighter and lighter all the time. So in midsummer we have, in this part of Finland, in midsummer we have 4 hours so that the sun goes like down, but it's not dark because the sun is just like lurking behind the trees. Very light.
Well, it's great. One of the great things about the World Storytelling Cafe is, we were talking to Juliana in the mountains of Colombia on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Lighter and lighter all the time. Yeah. In midsummer we have, in this part of Finland, in midsummer we have 4 hours so that the sun goes like down, but it's not dark. The sun is just like lurking behind the trees. Very light.
Well, it's great. One of the great things about the World Storytelling Cafe is, we were talking to Juliana in the mountains of Colombia.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Lighter all the time. Yeah. In midsummer we have, in this part of Finland, we have 4 hours so that the sun goes like down, but it's not dark. The sun is just like lurking behind the trees.
Well, it's great. One of the great things about the World Storytelling Cafe is, has somebody got the website in the background?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe we could try.
I think now it's working.
Perfect.
Hi, Norman.
Hello.
Stephanie.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, Stephanie.
So,
Andrea.
hi.
Thank you.
So, Riikka, do you
Yeah.
want to start?
Yeah, I can start. Yeah.
Okay, when you're ready.
So you have a great audience, Rick. I think 16 people in the room and about 20 on the website at the moment.
Oh, great.
I hope more will come.
Well, probably more, but
Yeah.
we have to say hello again after the first story.
All right. Yep.
Okay.
So Riikka, do you
Yeah.
want to start?
Yes, I will start. Yeah. How can I see at least some of the faces?
Are you on an iPad or a
Laptop.
telephone? A laptop.
Yep.
So on the top right, there can you see
A
a
gallery view.
gallery?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you'll see some faces.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Welcome, dear friends, to World Storytelling Cafe, and welcome to my old log house up here in Finland. And yes, when I volunteered for doing this live session that happened maybe 1 week ago, silly me, I of course started to think about what should I tell to you? What sort of stories should I share? And always when I have a problem or I need advice, I go to the forest early in the morning and I ask my friends in the woodlands. They quite often have the right answer, or actually they always have the right answer, but quite often I want to argue with them because I think I'm smarter than them, but I should know better. They know. So I went to the forest and I asked that, all right, tell me, what should I tell to these people? What should my stories be? And they had the answer right away. They said that, isn't that obvious? Your first set of stories was about birth. So now you will turn the other side of the coin and you will talk about death. All righty. It's good. I've always enjoyed stories about death. And then I asked, do you have some particular stories that you would like me to tell? And they said that, oh, as a second one, you can tell your favorite story. But as the first one, we want you to tell about the cow Samantha. Cow Samantha? I've never told the story of cow Samantha. Yep, we know, they said. But it's about time you to tell it. So some of you know that I have been working with cattle for 25-ish years. And during those years, I've been present in maybe 100 births and the same amount of deaths. And in the early years, always when I was watching for a cow who was in labor, who was soon calving, I was wondering that I was sensing something or somebody was always present when the cow was about to calve, and that something was very powerful. But I couldn't understand what it was. Many years went by. I always had the feeling, but I didn't know what it was until I met that power in person. That was an October day, just a normal day. I had my coffee, my newspaper, and as it had been a frosty night, I needed to go and check all the water pump systems for the cattle, because if the pipes get frozen, you have trouble. So I put on my Wellingtons and went to the pastures. I started from an area where I had the young bulls. And when I was crossing the field to the other side where the water pumps were, I noticed that there was someone standing on my field. That was quite weird because that was the field where I had a dozen young bulls. Nobody normally wants to stand there where the young bulls are. They are really playful. And even more weird was the thing that she was wearing strange clothes. It was she, obviously. She had clothes like a simple peasant woman from the late 19th century. She had a long skirt, a simple cardigan, and a scarf round her head. And she was holding the scarf with her left hand, and with her right hand, she was just gently and a bit absent-mindedly touching the frost-covered hay. It's really beautiful. It looks like white laces all over the places when we have had a good frost. It looked like she was waiting for me. When I got closer, I realized who she was. I didn't have to ask her name. She didn't have to present herself, as she was death. Death herself. She had the message for me, but that's not relevant for this story. For this story, relevant thing is how she was. And she was age-old, wise, majestic. In a way, she was like a great-great-grandmother who had for umpteenth time caught you from stealing cookies. She wasn't angry, but you could see that she was kind of slightly upset. Do I have to talk about this over and over again? So she gave me her message. I continued my work. But after that, I realized who had always been present when a new life was being born. It was death. Death herself. Now, people normally say that life and death are the opposite poles, but that's not the thing. The opposite poles are birth and death. And I understood that the same entity, which we call death, she is present when somebody is being born, because she's the gatekeeper. She's the one who is opening the wheel between this land and the other one. And she's closing it again. after that meeting on the field, I have realized that there's nothing to fear about when talking about death. She said to me that she has a date for me and she herself is going to come and get me. And if someone who is so wise, so powerful, so majestic is going to take me and take care of me, I don't have anything to worry about. What is life then? To me, life is like it's like a huge tablecloth, so huge that I can't see where it begins or where it ends. It's a big, big piece of beautiful, alive cloth. And whenever someone is born, it's like somebody is making a knot or a wrinkle into that cloth. You say it very nicely in English language. You are talking about a form of life. And that's what it is. It's form of life. It's formed from the cloth. And the knot, it can be a humpback whale. It can be a dung beetle. It can be oak tree. It can be human being. And when our time is done, the same power that make the knot into the cloth is flattening again, maybe even ironing. So it goes back to be the same cloth again. But what is our meaning? What is it that we are supposed to do here? Our responsibility, this is how I see it, great wisdom from Finland. Our responsibility is to see through that when our wrinkle is flattened back to the cloth, we are leaving the beautiful colors. And these beautiful colors we can get into the cloth if we use our time here for sharing love, compassion, kindness, and joy. If we do that, we make a beautiful, beautiful tiny spot into the great cloth. And so slowly and slowly the world and the life gets lovelier. And isn't that the reason why we are telling stories here now? To spread all the good things. Yes, Samantha. Samantha. So she was a cow that was born on my farm. And she also died on my farm. During 25 years, I had several such animals. And she was the finest cow I have ever bred. She was tall. She was proud, big. She had wide hips. She had beautiful head, which she always held high up. And she had a magnificent set of horns. The older she got, she looked more and more like a true queen, holding the crown proudly on her head. She was not a pet. Oh no, not at all. She was not one of those cows who would come to meet you, nosing your hands, nosing your pockets. Do you have anything nice for me? Do you have a bit of bread? Do you have carrots, apples, oats, anything? Maybe scratching? No, Samantha wasn't like that. She was minding her own business and she allowed me to mind mine. She wasn't actually aggressive or nasty or anything, no. The only days I had to be a little bit careful was when she was having her baby, because then she was protecting her calf fiercely, like a good cow should do. And she left me wonderful calves, really, really beautiful, strong calves. The best of them, one bull, I actually sold to north of England, even though that Highland cattle is a Scottish breed. So I think that was quite a good achievement. That bull traveled all the way to Durham and he made lovely calves. Did a good job for England. The one amazing thing that the cows were teaching me about death was that we all have our time here. Sometimes we think that somebody goes too early, but really we don't know all the big plans of the universe. But the cows, I didn't believe this when I noticed it for the first time. I didn't believe it when I noticed it for a second time, but year after year it happened and I had to believe it. The cows knew, the old cows, when was their time to go. So I wasn't amazed when one day I went to the pasture, as I always did early in the morning. It was winter, the time when I had already weaned the calves. And the very moment when I opened the gate, I realized that Lady Samantha lifted up her head and started walking towards me. And she was walking in a way that I knew very well. She had something she wanted to tell me. She walked straight to me, stopped in front of me. Cows don't actually take eye contact because their eyes are on the different sides of their heads, but they can, in a way, take some sort of mental eye contact. And that's what Samantha did. And she told me, I have had enough. I am old. I am tired. I have aches and pains. I want to go. And you, as you are here to take care of me, it's your responsibility that you make the arrangements so that I can go quickly and without pain. I said, all right, my lady, I'll do the arrangements. I went back home. I took the phone. I phoned to Abattoir, but I didn't want to go the normal way. No way. The normal way is that you need to You need to order a transportation, and then comes a big lorry, and you need to put the animal there, and it's taken to the abattoir, and it's put in a waiting hall, and it may take days. No, I didn't want that to happen to Samantha. I told the man from the abattoir that this cow is going to be put down on my own field. Will you do it? He said, yes. When will you want me to come? I said, as early as possible. He said, tomorrow morning. I said, good. The man had been on my pasture earlier. He knew the area. He knew that it's quite a large area, rough terrain, partly woodland, and it was winter. So he said that, can you arrange it somehow that the cow is on one place so that we can enter there with a tractor, because obviously we need to take the carcass away from the pasture. And I said that, yeah, I'll do the arrangements. I put the phone down. And I started thinking that, how can I do it? I didn't want to tie down that old lady. I didn't want to bring there any sort of metal panels that were clanging that I could build a pen from. I wanted to do it with dignity. And in the evening, I decided what to do. I went back to the pasture. And now it was my time to go straight to Lady Samantha. I took an eye contact and I told her, Samantha, I have done what you asked for. It will happen tomorrow morning. I will come here. I will use the upper gate on that corner, because there were 3 different gates on different parts of the pasture area. I will come to the upper gate, and with me there is going to be a man that you don't know, but he's the man who is skilled enough to help you all. And the only thing I'm asking from you is that you come to me. You come to me and allow us to do what is needed. Then I went back home. I had my tea, a little bit of sleep. And in the morning, the man arrived. We took my tractor and we started driving towards the pasture area. He asked that, you have the cow somewhere so that I can reach her and we can drive there with the tractor. I said, yeah. And when we approached to the pasture, we could see already from the distance that by the gate, there was standing a cow. A big cow, having her head up. The cow was facing the road. She was so close to the gate that the gate line almost touched her throat. She was watching. She was waiting. The man looked at the cow. Then he turned his head and asked from me that, is that the one? I nodded. We drove to the gate, came down from the tractor, walked side by side to the cow, and the old cow didn't move an inch when the bullet came. That was a departure of a real queen. Tutilasta tuonella alla nurmen nukkumaan. Tuonen lasten laulateella, manan heitojen pidellä. Tuonen kätkyt kaunoisampi, manan ajat avar. Yep. You know, in the old days in Finland, and our old days are not so far away as your old days in England or in many other places. Life was rough. It was really, really rough. Winters were cold, long, dark. The growing season in Finland is really short. And in the old days, when people didn't understand that they need to a bit dry the land and dig the ditches, we had a lot of marsh areas, and it was quite common that in the middle of the summer, the frost came and people lost all their crops. It was difficult to survive over the winter if you didn't get your crops. And you needed to have a lot of wood to keep yourself warm. And many people were really, really poor, and they were suffering. So in our old tradition, in our folklore, death is not something frightening. It's very, very different to if you like, if you open your computer and you Google death and you put like picture search, you are getting all these monsters, terrifying reapers with red eyes and sharp teeth, and they are drooling and they are really terrifying. That was not the death in our folklore. We have a lot of stories where death is just a common person. You can see him walking on the road. You can see him driving sledge. He can show compassion. He can get a little bit angry sometimes, but not in a bad way. He can feel sorry. And sometimes he wants to have a dram. Death happened so often, and of course people died at home, that it couldn't be anything terrifying or frightening. On the contrary, like that song that I sang, it's a lullaby, and we have a lot of such lullabies where the mother is picturing the land of death to the baby. Like in that song, it says that I'm lulling you into the land of death, because the land of death is beautiful. There are lovely songs in the land of death. The grass is green there, and there are wonderful, kind maidens of death who will hold you. So very often the poor mothers were thinking that maybe it would be better for a baby to go than just to starve here, especially if they were girls. I've always liked these stories of death, where the death is just walking on the road. And now I'm going to tell you my favorite story. Of course, all of us storytellers, we are always just telling our favorite stories. Each and every story I have listened here has been somebody's favorite story, and this is really, really my favorite story. It has been following me over 50 years. I was a weird child. I was quite lonely, and I didn't understand how human beings live. I always had the feeling that I am somehow outside, I'm different. And so I learned to read all by myself when I was 4 years old. And after that, I found comfort and sanctuary from the books. And I have been 5 or 6 when I was just nosing around one cottage. Nobody lived there. It was an empty cottage, and there was a cupboard. And that's what children love, cupboards in empty houses, because you know there might be treasures. And indeed, I found a treasure from there. I found a book. The first edition of that book was printed 1906, so 1906. And it was a collection of Finnish folk tales with lovely and a bit frightening and weird illustrations. And I started reading that book. And when reading that book, I felt for the first time in my life that I have a home and a family somewhere. It's among these creatures. And I have had the book with me all my life, wherever I have been, because of studies or because of work. I have had it with me. It's very old, pages are very yellow, but it's still with me, my best friend. And this story is from that book. And let's see how it goes in English. I've been telling this story over and over again in Finnish, but it is a new experience. It's a story about carpenter's apprentice and death. It was a November night. Stars sparkled in the heaven. Full moon shone its pale light. Snow was crisp underfoot. While along the road traveled carpenter's apprentice. He was a skillful man at his trade, but also a sort of a free-spirited, handsome lad who didn't want to stay a long time in one place, who preferred roaming the world. Under his arm, he carried the tools of his trade, a plane and a saw, but on his back, a little barrel of liquor. Night was really cold. It was getting colder all the time. Carpenter's apprentice tried to hurry his pace because he wanted to get into the next village and get some friendly place who would take him in for the night. It was silent. The only sound he could hear was the sound of his own 2 feet. But while he trudged along, he thought that he heard something else. he stopped to listen. And indeed, from behind him, from the shadows of the forest, he was able to hear a tiny, tiny sound of bells, jingle bells. And as he stood and listened, the sound of the bells grew stronger and stronger and stronger, and soon it was like a thunder of 1,000 bells. And from the shadows of the forest, out drove a black sled, drawn by a black stallion, and the driver was Death himself. Death slowed down when he reached our good carpenter, and he asked, "Who might you be then?" "Oh, sure, I'm just an ordinary woodworker." "I see. Well then, what's in that barrel of yours?" "Oh, sure. Oh, just ordinary liquor. Moonshine, sure." "I see. Well then, it's a cold night. Why don't you give me a drink and I'll give you a ride." The weather was really cold. The feet of our poor carpenter, they were already numb, and the black furs in Death's sled, they looked so warm and comfortable. Deal done, Death got his dram, and carpenter proceeded into the sledge, and off they drove. They drove so that the wind whistled in the carpenter's ears and the frost pinched his nose. It was really cold, and the Death wanted to have another drink. This time, the carpenter's apprentice said that, "I can't go around giving all my liquor for free. What will you give me in return?" Death promised to give him a hat, a magic hat, a hat such that whenever somebody was wearing it, he was completely invisible. Deal done. Death got his swig, carpenter got his hat, and off they drove. They drove so fast that the forest became a blur by the speed of their passage. The weather was getting bitterly cold, and Death wanted to have a third drink. This time, he promised to give carpenter's apprentice a purse, a magic purse, a purse such that whenever given a good shake, everyone present would immediately fall into deathly fear and remorse. Deal done. Death got his dram, carpenter's apprentice got his purse, and off they drove. They drove breakneck speed. Death started to feel a bit merry, and he said, "Why don't you come along with me now and watch how I go about my trade?" "Oh," thought the carpenter's apprentice, "why not?" And so they drove into a village. And while they were approaching a large mansion, the carpenter's apprentice could see that there were lanterns lit in all the windows, and there was a sound of weeping filling the air. The only beautiful daughter of the household was sick, and everyone was afraid that she wouldn't make it through the night. Death was tying up his stallion to the fence post, and in hurried carpenter's apprentice, and he whispered to the master of the household, "Alas, I bring sad news. Death has arrived here tonight to take you. But maybe I can save her." "Oh, please, please, good carpenter, do whatever you can," said the master. So the carpenter's apprentice was quickly taken into a chamber, in the center of which the poor girl lay on a large bed. And our woodworker, he was skilled at his trade. He was able to work fast, and before you knew it, he had fashioned from wood a pivot and fitted it under the bed so that the entire bed could be turned about the spot like a spindle frame. This done, carpenter's apprentice placed the magic hat on his head, and invisible waited for the death. Death enters the chamber. He walks straight to the head end of the bed. He raises his kite and swings it down to the poor girl's neck. But quick as a flash, the invisible apprentice is turning the bed about its axis, and the deathly blade plunged harmlessly to the blankets and the sheet. Nonplussed, Death walks again to the head end of the bed, strikes again, but again the carpenter's apprentice is faster. And they continue, go round and round and round and round, and this dance of death goes on until finally the sky caught the fireplace and split in two. Skyline broken. Death could do naught but leave the house and the girl unharmed. And while he was out untying his stallion, to him came the carpenter's apprentice, took out the magic purse and started shaking it for all he was worth. And immediately Death himself fell into deathly fear and remorse. "Oh, please, good woodworkers, stop shaking that purse. I promise you whatever you want." "Well then," said the carpenter's apprentice, "promise me that you will never, ever harm that girl, or me either, for that matter." And Death had to give this promise. And then he continued his journeys. And the invisible carpenter's apprentice went back into the house, slept a good night by the fireplace, and early in the morning he was on the road again. He roamed the world for many years without any cause for grief or sorrow. But then, one day, he got a message telling that the master of the household was planning to force her daughter to marry the village tycoon. That won't do, thought the carpenter's apprentice, and he hurried back to the village. And when he was approaching the house, He saw that all the lanterns were lit, and the sound of weeping was all over the household. It was the bride who was weeping. Oh, I don't want to marry that old man. I have another in my heart, the one who once saved me from death. But alas, I fear he doesn't even remember me. Well, at that point, Carpenter's apprentice put the magic hat on, went into the wedding hall invisible, and started shaking the magic purse for all he was worth. And immediately each and every person present fell into deathly fear and remorse. Oh, woe is me! How could I ever force my daughter into marriage? Said the master of the house. Oh, woe is me! How could I ever marry that girl against her own will? Said the tiger. Oh, woe is me! How could I ever marry a couple so mismatched? Said the prince. And then Carpenter's apprentice takes off his hat, becomes visible again. And the very moment the girl runs to him, throwing her arms about him, sighing, "You came at last." And then the priest carried out his true duty. And the carpenter's apprentice and the girl were married. And they lived happily ever after. And indeed, carefree was their living, as they had the promise from Death himself that he will never, ever harm them. End of the story.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank you, Riikka.
So, how lovely this is. So many people here. Woo, woo, woo.
25 in the room.
So we have 25 people watching us.
All right. Splendid. Yeah, it's amazing because 3 weeks ago I thought that Zoom is only something that I have in my camera.
How many countries are
We go.
Well, Riikka, so we also have people watching on the website from Montenegro, and from Germany, and from Argentina, and from the USA. So if any of you good people have Zoom, you're very welcome to join us by pressing the gold button on the website, because we're going to have a chat. Does anybody have any questions for Riikka?
Who's with us already? No
Ask my age.
No one's that rude.
Riikka, would it be possible to hear a little bit of story in Finnish?
Yes. Great.
Story in Finnish.
A little bit, yeah, just to give us a flavour, just to see what it sounds like in your mother tongue.
That would be great.
Just like few sentences. You mean, Dave? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can kind of, maybe it's easier to compare if I start the same story in Finnish and just go a few lines. So, yeah, how funny language I have. Se oli marraskuu. Tähdet loistivat taivaalla, täysikuu. valoi paloaan kylmään maahan. Lumi narisi jalkojen alla ja tietä pitkin kulki puusepän sälli. Hän oli taitava nuori mies toimessaan, mutta myös sellainen vapaa sielu ja komea sälli, joka ei halunnut viettää 2 yötä samassa huushollissa. Kainalossaan hänellä oli työvälineensä, saha ja höylä ja selässään viinalekkeri.
That's really beautiful.
It's very expressive, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So Finnish is it's like it's not a Latin-based language. It's very different to any languages. We don't have basically Estonian language and Hungary are said to be related to my language, but we don't understand each other.
Oh, okay.
And about many people think that Swedish and Norwegian and Danish and Finnish are like similar languages, but they are not. All the others, they can understand each other, but not us. So our language is really, really weird. So it's always it's very amusing because we are quite rough and peasant. And we don't have the word please in our language. But what is even more interesting is that we don't make a difference between he and she.
Ah,
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gender neutral.
So we are just humans. So we have a pronoun for things that are not human, and then humans. So we are humans, not male or female.
that's good.
And it comes from the old times when
Hello, people.
when men quite often they went for hunting or fishing grounds that were further away. They might stay away for months, and some joined the Vikings, raised fruits, and stayed away for years. So it was the women who had the power. So in a very many of the old dresses, in the national old dresses, the Finnish ladies are having a lot of keys hanging from their waist. And that meant that they had all the economical power. They had the keys to the storerooms, and they were giving orders to the working people. They were doing trade. They were deciding how to run the farm. And well, some people say that Finnish women are quite independent, strong, and stubborn. That can't be true.
Those are all the best qualities for a woman to have.
Determined is another word for stubborn.
Yeah, it depends who says it. If a man is saying it, they say stubborn.
So are your folk tales, because you're saying your language is very distinct from Denmark and Norway and that, are your folk tales as distinct from Denmark and Norway and all of that as well? Are they they're very different?
It depends a bit from which part of Finland they are collected. Unfortunately, the area where I live, so southeast, we lost all our tradition when the Swedes ruled our country and they were introducing the Christianity into Finland. They said that all the pagan things has to be destroyed, and they didn't. The stories, most of the stories, like the book Kalevala, which is like a poem of Finland, they were collected from Eastern Finland. And then, of course, in north of Finland, we have the Samic people who used to live in the south, but then my breed at some point of the history entered the country and we pushed the Samic people north, and they have their own stories. Norwegian and Swedish, they have a lot of trolls, so mountain trolls. We don't have so much of those. We have a lot of stories that are quite dark because Finnish people like to go alone in the woods, and the old religion was sort of a religion where there was spirit. Everything had spirit and power, and people tried to respect these spirits. So they were like I have an elf living in this house. He's very old. He likes his brandy
and cognac.
Yeah, I gave him fresh brandy this morning because if he doesn't have booze, he has his own little glass on top of one of my cupboards, and if that is empty, strange things start to happen. And I thought that if I lose the internet today, I'm in trouble. So I told to my elf that, okay, you are going to get my best brandy today and make sure that damn internet is working. And he did okay.
Does he have a name, Riikka? Does he have a name?
I have never heard about it. No,
Is there a Finnish word for elf?
Tonttu.
Yeah.
Tonttu.
Okay. I wondered. I've heard this word. Yeah.
Yeah. So some I don't know which is the good translation. Some people say that a brownie would be a good translation for tonttu.
In Scotland, it would be a brownie. Yeah.
Yep.
He does good things if you are good to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some traditions, if you name the spirit, they are laid. They have to leave. Giving them is, I said, in some traditions. I would say that if I could get a dram every now and then, I would hang around.
I have a spirit in my house. It drinks beer. It really likes beer, and it's very good at cooking the dinner as well.
Well, it's really good. It's very economical if your brownie is drinking beer, because mine is so fussy about his drinks that he only wants to have brandy or port wine. I mean, man, that's expensive.
Well, I've trained mine very well because mine buys its own.
I tried to train mine, but I lost several pieces of cloth. And it was really, really weird. I had my favorite shirt, and I have one cupboard because I don't have much, I don't possess much things. I have my clothes in one cupboard only. And I knew that my shirt was there and I wanted to wear it. I went to a city and I wanted to have my favorite shirt on. It was not there. And I searched and I searched. I took everything out from the cupboard and really went through each and every piece of cloth I had there. It was not there. Then I put everything back there and used another shirt. And then I was thinking that, this sounds like a brownie trick. And I had tried to give him beer. Oh, I said that, all righty, if I give you brandy, will you give me back my shirt? And so I took the beer away and put a wee bit of good brandy instead. And the next day I went upstairs where my cupboard is. I opened the door and it was hanging first in a row.
It's an approach to my grandmother. She taught us that if you can't find something, you take a big pin and you put it into the pillow on your bed and you ask for the devil to give it back, and you don't take out the pin until he's given it back. So where you were nice and gave brandy, she wasn't so nice and just gave pain.
Well, I'm very kind-hearted person.
You're lovely, I know this.
Yeah. I just love everyone and everything. Trees and dung beetles and brownies and forest spirits and cows.
Can I ask, Riikka, as you know, I'm learning Finnish slowly.
I have noticed.
Thanks, Riikka. What is the name of the book that you've had since childhood?
The name of the book is Tarulinna. Tarulinna means the castle of stories.
Okay, thank you.
So, Norman, have you got that one?
Oh, I've got a lot, but not that. There's only.
Forget it.
I am absolutely envious that you found a cupboard with books. When I was a child, the nearest library was 10 miles away, and I would hitchhike into Pembroke to get a load of books, and then book a day, repeat.
Did you hear?
Can you see here is the illustration for that story?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find one. Thank you.
Are they stories from around the world or Finnish stories?
These are Finnish stories.
Okay.
So these are all the stories in here are out of our oral tradition and out of the collection of Finnish Literature Society. And in their archives, they have 12,000 different collected stories. And these are like, they are rewritten in the modern language, but in the modern language of 1906. So it's quite old language. So Norman.
Yes,
I'd like to buy my book.
I'm going to go and take a look at what I do have.
He may
Surprise
find
for
one.
you, Norman, as you are my friend.
Thank you so much, Riikka. I really enjoyed that. My elf is now calling me for dinner, and I really would be. It would be really bad if I didn't go. I'd probably find it being fed to the badgers outside or something.
Oh yes, yes.
Don't give Phil
Not
too
good
much cognac
to
there.
upset the brownie.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Thank you so much. I'll speak to you soon. Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
Andraza. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
Andrea. Bye, bye.
Yeah, I'm off to feed my imp as well. So thanks, Peter.
Yeah. Goodbye, all.
Oh, I thought you got to the book.
I did. One is Lapland Legends by from 1926 and by retold from the Swedish. And that's interesting.
So that's the Samic. The Samic stories are common in Norway and Sweden and Finland.
You can see the drum.
Yeah, that's Samic.
Yeah. And the other is Mighty Mikko, a hero of Finland. And this one, Parker Fillmore from 1922. And these are the traditional European stories.
Yep.
I am David.
So you don't have any books. You don't have any books with Finnish stories. So of like my tribe.
Finnish? No, I do not. Yeah.
Well,
I will
have
take.
to get you some.
I will. Okay. It's there's a world tradition that I'm becoming far more aware of because of events like this, and I will have to say I'm absolutely grateful to you and everyone who have been sharing their stories. Like, I mean, I feel like I've been living in a very small room, and suddenly there are doorways everywhere.
Yeah.
And so
yes, this has been really amazing trip.
And I'm hoping that you will be telling more stories. Please. And I'll send you a dram.
You send me a dram.
I will. What's your favorite?
Right, you go, Pauline.
Oh, I love brandy and good whiskey if it's a single malt whiskey.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Red wine and port wine. Those are my favorites.
Yeah. Okay. Whisk. We'll see what we can do.
Pop that in Riikka's hat.
With tax?
No, her hat on the website.
Oh, hat. Oh, yes. Well, I assume they just grow there for storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I don't. I'm going to say goodbye for now. So there. Thank you again for those wonderful stories.
Nice to see you again, Norman.
Good to see you, Dave.
Thank you for
See you, Norman.
being there, Norman. Yep.
Yeah, I'm going to say thanks very much for the lovely stories, Riikka. It was really lovely. I'll see you
Thank you, Dave.
Bye-bye.
See you, Dave. So, Riikka,
Yep.
have you read the Calavella?
Most of it, yes.
Yeah, I read it last year, and I found it amazing because it's in poetic form, and I found I just couldn't put the book down. It lulled me into some kind of a way of reading, and I just couldn't put the book down. Yeah.
But you know, Shane, the old tradition in Finland was chanting.
Chanting, yes.
Yes. So the old stories were all sung, and you know the ring that I made for you, where there are the two hands.
Yes.
Together. It was the way that there was always two people, and they were sitting opposite to each other, and they were holding their both hands like this, and then they were like swinging back and forth.
Okay.
And they used quite monotonic the melody, and the lyrics you can't get them in English because in Finnish we have the rhyme in the beginning of the word, not at the end of the word.
Okay.
So like in that song, that lullaby that I sang, there was like a verse, tuuti tuuti tummaistani. So the word is always beginning with tu. Tuuti tuuti tummaistani. And that's quite difficult to translate into English. I made one song once translated so that I got the sound a bit like that.
Yeah.
But it is said that when the Swedes started to rule Finland, it was one of the reasons why they destroyed all the poetry, because it was used for witchcraft. And Finnish witches were very powerful chanting. And that's why a lot of the poetry is destroyed, unfortunately.
The précis to the book, the Calavella, it's Lonrot, I think the man's name was, and he said, I think he found two men, and if he hadn't interviewed those two men and written down everything, it would have gone. It would have all been left to those two men when they died, basically.
Yeah. Basically, it was one man, Elias Lönnrot, who was walking around eastern Finland and collecting them.
Yes.
And he was. It wasn't like a one saga. He was collecting bits and pieces and poems, and he did a bit of artistic work to put it together. But it represents very well the mythology on Finland, and it's one thing as which is very weird in Kalevala compared to other sort of heroic stories in all over the world. In a normal heroic national story, the men, they go to fight, they go to wars, they are brave, and they get to victories. in our literature, the men cry. They fail. They try to have that. They go to wars, and sometimes they fail, and they cry.
Yeah.
And behind, in Kalevala, behind all the great warriors, there is a strong woman, normally the mother. And even so that when one of the warriors is really being stupid and he's chopped into pieces and thrown into the river of death, the old mother comes and is like, has a rake, and she's raking the bits and pieces of the foolish boy from the river. And she's able to build the man again and get from the nature. A bee is bringing honey, and the honey is like gluing the back to a person. But it's the strong women and the weak men. That's our tradition.
Yeah.
I wonder why I'm not married. Anybody wants to try?
Me too. Me too.
Fantastic.
But maybe people should read more Kalevala and understand that even men can cry. They can still.
I think they should. I think it's a wonderful book to read. Wonderful.
Well, in Scott stories,
John.
John, we're having difficulty hearing you. Do you want to type? You can type into Facebook Messenger, and we'll read it out for you. Or
John, you're on mute.
Or put it on chat.
Yeah, on chat. I think John has some internet problems.
yeah, I'm not sure John knows how to use the chat, but Facebook Messenger is a good idea.
John, can you hear us?
Stick your thumb up like this if you can hear us.
Yeah.
Give us a thumbs up, John. Yeah, there's a thumbs up. He can hear.
Okay.
I stopped being rude about him.
John.
If you type your question into the Tell Us chat, John, we'll read it out for you. I can't hear you at the moment.
Could take a while.
It will. It will. It'll be one finger going like this.
But it will be
That's
worth,
where my type.
worth the wait. Does anybody else have a question while we're waiting for John to one finger type?
Can you just unmute him?
We could try it.
Yeah, just unmute him.
You can mute yourself. You see, that's the problem.
Yeah, I know that's what he's
Yeah,
done.
you can.
That's
You
what he's
can.
done.
I think the host can unmute him though.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's unmuted.
okay.
Yeah, and we're finished now, John. So you can't retaliate.
Hey, John.
That's okay. So that was the problem. It wasn't my end. It was the host, Bianca. What are you doing to me?
Not doing anything. I cannot hear you clearly.
Your fault.
Underwater.
You're at the bottom of a well, John. We had to.
What I love about the hero of the cover is
Vina Minen.
Oh,
Can't
can
you?
someone kind of?
You hear me now?
I can hear you, but it's really difficult to get the idea because the sound is really. Like,
can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm really
I've got a new machine. That's the problem.
We are going to have to mute you. We're struggling to hear you. If you
hold on.
This is a new art
I
form.
hope someone's recording this to torment him. And
If there's something we know about John is you can't keep him quiet for long.
Okay, you can't mute him. We all want a mute button for John at times.
Okay, can you hear me now?
You now.
Oh my God.
That's okay. So I can see everyone on one machine and I can speak in another.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Now can I hear you, John? Yeah. What were you asking?
That's it. I thought because I had this Chromebook, it would be everything be marvelous.
Okay, I'm going on another machine.
I don't know what you're doing.
What is happening? What is happening?
We've got
It's those elves, you know. Too much branding going around.
There's so many of you.
I'm mutating. I'm cloning myself.
I think you need to turn off.
Yeah, that thing is
Oh my God.
even normally
Okay.
for me because I
Can
can't
you hear me
read lips
now?
and when
John,
We can hear you, but not clearly.
it's like being in a pub.
Believe me.
This is Riikka's thing, taking it over.
Oh,
I must
like the ghost of Christmas future. What have you done?
So Riikka, I've got a question. Can you hear me, or do I sound like I'm underwater as well?
No, I can hear you very well.
Great.
Okay, great. So I'm just a bit curious about your cows. I'm just wondering, where did they come from? Did you buy them, or did you inherit them from someone, or does everybody have cows near to where you live?
No, nobody has cows here. It was 26 years ago. I was dating a farmer, and he had been in England in some agricultural show, and he had seen the Highland cattle, so Scottish Highland cattle. And he wanted to have such, and they didn't exist in Finland. But I'm a sort of a person, if somebody is saying that this would be a nice idea, let's do it. And so I contacted our Ministry of Agriculture, and I contacted Highland Cattle Society in Scotland, and I did a lot of things. And so it happened that I imported Highland cattle into Finland. Throughout the years, I took in way over 100 animals from Europe. And then I was doing my own breeding work. I started a Highland Cattle Society in Finland. I have been its president. It has been like my mission to bring Highland cattle into Finland. And yes, I bought all the breeding bulls, and at the moment I am dealing 2 breeding bulls from Germany into Finland. It's a bit difficult because I can't go and choose them myself. I need to kind of just use pictures and pedigrees, and but don't ask too much about cattle, because if I start talking about Highland cattle, so there's not going to be end for that, because I just love those creatures.
And you ditched the boyfriend?
Oh yeah, you know, things happen. He managed to. Oh, we were married and we got 1 daughter. But when my daughter was 4 years old, he just walked out from the door and went back to his mother, leaving me cattle, farm, and a 4-year-old daughter.
Oh.
It's a good job that the women in Finland are strong and bold and brave and all the other things that you said earlier.
Yeah, So I was educated to be a Master of Arts, so my education didn't have much to do with the farming. But as I am stubborn, I had the manual of the tractor in my hand, and I was reading the manual. I was crying and swearing both things, and I learned to drive it. So I've been running my farm and my cattle. Just my daughter and I. And now my daughter is grown up, and she moved away from home. So I sold my cattle just 2 years ago to a lovely family, and I'm working for them as a herdsman part-time, and continuing. And also I'm an international cattle judge. I can go and judge Highland cattle shows all over the world.
Fantastic.
This spring I was supposed to judge the national show in Switzerland and the national show in Australia, but yeah, things happened. It's all cancelled.
Hopefully next year.
Yeah, I hope so. Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Nice job.
That's interesting.
Yes, it's just there's nothing like the smell of show ring when I go to Oban to Scotland, Oban cattle shows.
Do you mean
just
cow
wonderful.
poo?
Pardon?
You mean cow poo?
Yeah, cow poo and straw and hay and cool shampoos and all that excitement. It's just brilliant. Really nice.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so any more questions for Riikka before we give her one final round of applause? Fantastic. So now we can unmute everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I need the brandy now.
Deserved.
I'll have a toast with my brownie.
I think you're being some.
We're going to go and rescue John from the bottom of the well where he's living.
It's okay, Michael.
His brother will be able to rescue him. You can see.
Someone just dropped me a rope.
You're missing dinner tonight, John. I've got Argentinian red prawns. They're massive like this. And they didn't make their way to the freezer, unfortunately, so I have to eat them all.
Can I visit you? I like prawns.
Oh, he's on mute again.
It's very funny. Okay, well, thank you so much, Riikka.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all.
Oh, thank you.
And I'll buy you brandy and some pins.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Riikka.